an archaeologist. I don't know. I thought it sounded cool. I think I liked the word. I had no idea. When I was in 6th grade, I moved from Kenmore, New York to Pittsburgh. And the Pennsylvania curriculum was about a year behind New York curriculum. So 6th grade, I just kind of sat back, relaxed, kind of wrote it out. Unfortunately, I kept relaxing all the way through high school. So I got to my junior year of high school and went down to my guidance counselor and was like, okay, Mr. I'm here to talk about applying to college. I'm ready to go to college. And he looked at me and he went, you're never getting into college. Not with those grades. Okay, so I came back my senior year and I joined all the clubs and demonstrated my leadership abilities and became president of clubs and all that. And at the same time, I also met Mr. Holliday. Mr. Holliday was my English teacher. And he loved his subject area. And if he didn't love his subject area, he made us believe that he loved it. And the other thing that we knew for sure was that he really cared about us. So he was the most rigorous teacher. That was the most rigorous class I had ever been in. It was very challenging. But because we knew that he cared about us and he was so fired up about his subject matter, we rose to that challenge. So I did go to college. Still had no idea what I wanted to do. I changed my major 5 times, completely clueless. I graduate, still no idea. I love books, I love kids. That's all I know. So I go and I work in a daycare center. And I had the opportunity to work in a preschool setting. Now, I didn't think I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't think I was creative enough. But I had that chance to create some lessons and teach the kids, and I thought, I got this. It was also about the time that the internet was becoming more and more popular. That makes me sound old. But there were a lot more lessons on the internet, so that made it a little bit easier too. So back to school I went, but this time I thrived. I had a purpose. I knew what I wanted, and I knew what I wanted to do. I love the educational theory courses. I love the instructional strategies. So I graduate from school, I get a job, and I start bringing all that in. I'm reading, I'm teaching kids, doing all of these things, and luckily, I was competent in technology. So I'm going to pause my story there, and I'm going to move on to my Cameron here, who is the future animal rescuer. Now, Cameron is brilliant. I know, everybody thinks their kids are brilliant. My kid is brilliant. Not perfect. He can't remember to change his socks in the morning, but he's brilliant. He loves science, he loves animals, and he's curious about everything. He's always asking questions. So many questions, in fact, that when the principal came in to observe his classroom, she noticed that his questions were becoming disruptive. So she put him on a plan and said, you can ask so many questions in a day. And if you are under those questions, you can come to my office and get a treat. Not my favorite behavior modification. But if any of you are parents and educators, you know that we walk a fine line in those classrooms, and you have to pick your battles. So, then we have Michaela, my future Broadway star over here. She loves to sing and dance. Now, Michaela was lucky enough to meet her favorite teacher in 1st grade, Mrs. And Michaela would come home from school, and she would, in her class, they did the Daily 5. So she would set up her little reading corner, and she had her book box, and she would recreate everything that they had done in class, all the activities, all the lessons. She chose to do that on her free time. I think that speaks volumes to what was going on in Mrs. Szynski's class. That's all I need to say. That she chose to do that when she could have done anything. Michaela's in 4th grade this year, and she can no longer choose if she wants to do that kind of work or not. So like many families, we struggle with how do we get in family time, how do we get in all the homework time, but how do we get Michaela to follow her passions and do those things that she loves to do that aren't offered in school. Okay, so back to me. There's a picture of me, it's a couple years ago, I got the longer hair, giving the thumbs up. I love my job. And I love that I can say that, and I'm not just saying that because my boss is sitting here in the front row. I truly, truly love my job. I love that I can go and I can read about all those theories and strategies, and I can create a workshop. And then I can have discussions with teachers, and we can talk about all of that. Then we can go and try it out with our kids. And sometimes we come back and we're like, yes, I killed it. And sometimes we come back and we're like, not so good. But we learn from those mistakes, and we grow and we move on. I was a little fearful at first that because I don't typically work with students that much, that kid part of what I love to do, that would really be missing from my life. But I've learned to view it differently, that I can reach many more students because of their teachers that I work with. So I feel like that I am really helping people, and that fulfills me. I don't want your kids, my kids, anyone's kids to go through their entire educational career and not know what they want, not know what their passions are, not be able to follow those and figure out what it is that makes meaning for their life. So Diana Laufenberg gave a TED Talk about how to learn from mistakes. And in that talk, she also talked about how, for many of us, when we were younger, maybe not all of us, we had encyclopedias at home. But our information primarily came from our teachers when we went to school. They were the information holders. Now we have all these devices that we can hold in our hand and gives us the entire world. So our students have the world in their fingertips. So when we ask them to come to school, they already have the information. What is it that we are doing with kids while they're in school?
There are a million pictures that I could click through here and had to choose carefully, this is one of my favorites, of students learning, of what learning can look like in a landscape where we let go of the idea that kids have to come to school to get the information, but instead ask them what they can do with it. Ask them really interesting questions. They will not disappoint. Ask them to go to places, to see things for themselves, to actually experience the learning, to play, to inquire. This is one of my favorite photos because this was taken on Tuesday when I asked the students to go to the polls. This is Robbie, and this was his first day of voting, and he wanted to share that with everybody and do that. But this is learning too, because we asked them to go out into real spaces. The main point is that if we continue to look at education as if it's about going to school to get the information, and not about experiential learning, empowering student voice, and embracing failure, we're missing the mark. And everything that everybody is talking about today isn't possible if we keep having an educational system that does not value these qualities, because we won't get there with a standardized test, and we won't get there with a culture of one right answer. We know how to do this better, and it's time to do better.
And I think we can do better. Mr. Holliday, that favorite teacher of mine, he was all Shakespeare, and we were like, Shakespeare. But he loved it, and we were able to view Shakespeare through his eyes, and we got it. He made us understand it. He made it come alive to us. And I want all teachers to feel that way. I want them to be excited about what they're teaching, and I want kids to be excited about what they're learning. Love their passions, follow those passions, explore, and learn from them. All that stuff I just said, I'm supposed to say it. Daniel Pink's book, Drive, talks about intrinsic motivation and how science tells us intrinsic motivation comes from three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy is when we get to choose what we're learning. We choose how we're learning, when we're learning, and maybe even what we're learning. Mastery is getting really good at something that matters. And purpose is creating something for the greater good, something to make the world a better place. So all of those things help us to be motivated to teach and learn better. So how do we do that? What does that mean? Well, the first thing is, let's not squelch that curiosity. Let's let the kids ask those questions. Let's harness all of that energy to propel those lessons forward. The question formulation technique from the Right Question Institute gives some steps on how to use those questions and the right way to use those within lessons. So one of the first steps is that the teacher gives the students a cue focus. And that is just a topic that the teacher wants them to ask questions about. So the kids get to ask all their questions, they write them all down, they don't edit them, they don't judge them, they can write as many questions as they want, Cameron, get it all out there. I'm not bitter about it at all. So then as a group, they can come together and they can categorize those questions. They can prioritize those questions. So you're left with just the big questions, and the kids own them. They feel like it is their responsibility to find the answers, to do the research, to get the information, and to come up with the ideas. So when they have all of those ideas, you know, they're kind of up here. It's like they're in the cloud. We're not really sure where they are or what's happening. We need to make them more concrete. So we need to let those kids build and produce. It could be a video. It could be a movie. It could be a song. It could be a book, a short story. I don't really care what it is, but show me how you know what you know. And when they do, they come up with some really outstanding ideas because kids have a completely different perspective. So this boy, whose grandfather has Alzheimer's, he created this circuit board. It's connected to a sensor. When his grandfather leaves the house, there's a signal that goes off, and the sound is alerted on the smartphone. Things that I would have never dreamed of. We need to give them a space to do that. So we've probably all been in this library. You may have sat at those tables and gossiped, or maybe you guys did the research. Typical looking library, but what if we make the library the laboratory, where we have an idea lab, and we do the research, but we also have that space to create. And it doesn't have to be expensive. This is the Pittsburgh Center for Creative Reuse, and what they do is basically taking garbage. They take it all, whatever you're going to donate, and they will organize it all so that you need buttons, you can come and get some buttons. We got all kinds of stuff. And they have this great space back here, the bulk area, and you can get a small bag for $3, a medium bag for $5, or the large bag that, of course, my kids both wanted for $8. But they were so excited because they went in there and they could choose anything. You don't mean it doesn't matter how much it costs, it's all just $8. No, you choose whatever you want. They walked out of there with their bags ripping open, pipes sticking out, you know, just happy as clams. And out of that came a robot and a catapult. And my mom got some knitting magazines, so we were all happy. So courage. Michelle just gave us some great information about risk. And we need to create that culture within our classrooms where failing doesn't mean that you've done something bad. It just means that it's your first step. Because risk is scary. And that's where we need to change our mindset and our students' mindset. We need to change that inner dialogue, that when something doesn't work out the way that you expected, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means you haven't done it yet. Because sometimes you come up across a roadblock, a fence you need to climb. Maybe it's a gorgeous day. You get over that, no problem, you're home free, yes. But sometimes you might get a little bit stuck. Sometimes you're hoping a friend's going to come along and help you out. Sometimes you might feel like you're in over your head, and that's where your classmates and your teacher can help dig you out. Because there are no mistakes, just happy little accidents. And those accidents can lead to extraordinary things. Ooh, we're back. Sorry, that's really good. Oh, that's not my son. So Daniel Pink also talks about these Goldilocks tasks. And these tasks are tasks that are not too hard, but not too easy. If they're too hard, then that creates frustration and anxiety. If they're too easy, it creates boredom and disengagement. So it needs to be something that's just right. And I'm not saying that that's easy, because it's going to be different for every kid, but it's possible. So the Genius Hour, we heard a little bit about that earlier. That comes out of Google with their 20% time. They give their employees 20% of their time to follow whatever and create and research whatever it is that they want. It doesn't have to be related directly to their responsibilities. So out of that, Google has gotten Gmail. 3M has gotten sticky notes. So we're bringing this into education. Follow those passions, create, and show me what you've learned. Now on the other side of that, the FedEx Day is a 24-hour turnaround time. So maybe we bring in teachers and we let them have self-directed PD time. You tell me what you want to learn. You follow that. You work with a group. You work by yourself. I'm here as your resource person. I'm here to help you out when you get stuck hanging onto that bunk bed at the top, or you get stuck on the fence. The next day, come in and present to everyone what you've created for your class. Because learning is messy. Learning and teaching is messy. It does not fit into those bubbles. Thank you.